What if the fear you feel today is not really about today at all? What if the anxiety in your chest, the tension in your body, the hesitation before you speak, love, or rest, is a memory your nervous system has never released? When I ask myself this, another question follows immediately. What if healing does not require fixing who I am now, but reparenting who I once was? This is the question that led me into the heart of this journey I call Reparent the Past. Erase childhood fear from your nervous system. And the deeper I went, the more unsettling and liberating the realization became. My body was still living in a childhood it had never finished processing. Have you ever wondered why you react so strongly to situations that seem harmless on the surface? Why your mind knows you are safe, yet your body refuses to believe it? Why reassurance from others never fully settles you, no matter how often you receive it? I have asked myself these questions countless times, and each time they pointed me back to the same place, not forward into the future, but inward into the past. A past that does not live in memory alone, but in muscle tension, breathing patterns, emotional reflexes, and unconscious expectations. What if the fear you carry is not a flaw in your character, but a survival strategy your nervous system learned long before you had a choice? What if your anxiety is not weakness, but loyalty to a younger version of you who learned that safety was uncertain, love was conditional, or silence was dangerous? And if that is true, then the real question becomes this: who is taking care of that younger self now? I realized something that changed everything for me. No amount of insight, motivation, or external success could calm my nervous system as long as it still believed it was alone. My body did not need more discipline. It needed relationship. It needed consistency. It needed a presence it could trust. In other words, it needed a parent, and that parent had to become me. This is where reparenting truly begins. Not as a concept, but as a confrontation. A confrontation with the way my past still speaks through my reactions. A confrontation with the fear that shaped my identity without my permission. And perhaps the most uncomfortable question of all: am I willing to meet the parts of myself that were never met when they needed it most? Because reparenting the past is not about blaming anyone. It is about ending the unconscious repetition of fear. It is about teaching the nervous system that the danger has passed, that the child has grown, and that someone is finally here to listen. It is about transforming fear from a prison into a message, and from a message into wisdom. And so I begin here with this question. For myself, and for you, what would change in your life if your nervous system finally felt safe? I speak today not as a teacher standing above life, but as a witness standing within it. Everything I understand about fear, safety, and healing has come from turning inward and listening to what my body and mind have been carrying for decades. I have learned that the past does not remain behind me. It lives in me. It breathes through my nervous system, shapes my reactions, tightens my chest, accelerates my heart, and colors my perception of the present. To reparent the past is not to deny what happened or to rewrite history, but to meet what remains unfinished within me and complete it with awareness, care, and responsibility. When I look honestly at my fears, I realize they did not begin in adulthood. They began when I was small, when my nervous system was still forming its understanding of the world. At that time, I did not have language, power, or choice. I had sensation, I had emotion, I had instinct. Fear entered my body not as an idea, but as an experience. A raised voice, an absence of comfort, unpredictability, emotional distance, or pressure to become something before I was ready. All of these taught my nervous system a lesson: that the world was not entirely safe, that love might be conditional, that vigilance was necessary for survival. These lessons did not disappear as I grew older. They became automatic responses, hidden beneath my conscious intentions. For many years, I believed fear was a flaw in my character. I believed my anxiety, avoidance, overthinking, or emotional withdrawal were signs of weakness. Only later did I understand that these were intelligent adaptations. My nervous system did exactly what it was designed to do: protect me. It learned patterns early and repeated them faithfully. The tragedy was not that fear existed. but that it remained unconscious. When fear stays unconscious, it rules from the shadows. When it becomes conscious, it can be transformed. I have come to see the nervous system as a living archive. It remembers everything, especially what the mind tried to forget. Childhood fear is stored not as a story, but as tension, reactivity, numbness, and hypervigilance. I notice it when my body braces for conflict that has not yet arrived, when I feel unsafe in moments of intimacy, when rest feels unfamiliar, or when success triggers guilt instead of satisfaction. These are not present-day problems alone. They are echoes of earlier environments where safety was uncertain and emotional needs were unmet. Reparenting myself means that I no longer wait for the external world to give me what I lacked. I become the source of stability, protection, and reassurance that my younger self needed but did not receive consistently. This is not an act of blame toward those who came before me. It is an act of responsibility toward myself. I cannot change what happened, but I can change how it lives inside me. The first step in reparenting is awareness. I must slow down enough to notice my internal reactions. When fear arises, I do not rush to suppress it or analyze it away. I feel it in my body. I observe where it lives: my chest, my stomach, my throat, my jaw. I allow it to exist without judgment. This alone begins to rewire my nervous system, because it learns that fear can be present without danger following it. Presence becomes a signal of safety. As I stay with these sensations, I begin to recognize patterns. Certain situations consistently trigger the same responses. Criticism tightens me. Uncertainty exhausts me. Silence feels like rejection. Authority activates submission or defiance. These patterns are not random. They are organized responses shaped by early experiences. Seeing them clearly allows me to separate past from present. I remind myself that I am no longer small, powerless, or dependent. My body may remember fear, but my current reality does not always require it. Compassion is the next essential element. I speak inwardly to the part of me that learned to fear. I do not speak with impatience or force. I speak as a calm, steady presence. I acknowledge the fear without trying to eliminate it. I say to myself that it makes sense, that it once served a purpose, that it helped me survive. This tone matters. The nervous system responds not to logic alone, but to emotional quality. Harshness reinforces fear. Gentleness dissolves it. Over time, I begin to experience an internal shift. The fearful part of me no longer feels alone. It no longer needs to scream through anxiety or freeze through avoidance to be noticed. It is being heard. It is being held. This is the essence of reparenting. Consistent internal presence. Not perfection, but reliability. Each time I respond to myself with patience instead of self-attack, I teach my nervous system a new lesson. I also come to understand that fear often masks deeper needs. Beneath anxiety lies a desire for safety. Beneath anger lies a need for protection. Beneath numbness lies a longing for connection. When I meet the need instead of fighting the symptom, healing accelerates. I learn to give myself structure when chaos triggers me, rest when pressure overwhelms me, and boundaries when my system feels invaded. These are parental functions I now provide for myself. Dreams, imagination, and inner imagery become important guides in this process. My unconscious communicates symbolically, showing me where fear still hides. When I pay attention to these symbols instead of dismissing them, I gain access to layers of myself that words cannot reach. I allow images, emotions, and memories to arise without forcing meaning onto them. This creates dialogue between conscious awareness and unconscious memory. Integration begins where listening replaces control. As reparenting continues, I notice that my reactions soften. Situations that once triggered intense fear now create manageable discomfort. My nervous system becomes more flexible. I recover faster. I trust my ability to respond rather than react. This does not mean fear disappears entirely. It means fear no longer dominates my identity. I am larger than my fear. I contain it rather than being contained by it. I also recognize that reparenting is not a single breakthrough but a long-term relationship with myself. There are days when old patterns return. When they do, I do not interpret this as failure. Regression is part of integration. Each return offers another opportunity to respond differently. Consistency, not intensity, is what reshapes the nervous system. Through this work, I begin to experience a deeper sense of wholeness. Parts of myself that were once split off, sensitivity, vulnerability, emotional needs, are welcomed back. I no longer see strength as emotional suppression. I see strength as the capacity to remain present with myself under stress. This presence becomes the foundation of confidence, authenticity, and inner stability. Reparenting the past does not erase memory, it changes relationship. The past becomes information rather than identity. Fear becomes a signal rather than a command. My nervous system learns that the present is not a repetition of the past, and that I am capable of protection, choice, and care. Ultimately, this journey reshapes how I relate to others. As I become safer within myself, I seek fewer external validations. I tolerate intimacy without losing myself. I establish boundaries without guilt. I listen without defensiveness. Healing becomes relational, not isolated, because a regulated nervous system naturally invites connection. I understand now that the goal is not to return to childhood and relive it, but to reclaim what was missing and integrate it into adulthood. I become both the one who needed care and the one who provides it. This internal union is what creates resilience. This is what allows fear to dissolve into awareness, and awareness into freedom. I continue this work not because I am broken, but because I am alive. The nervous system is plastic. The psyche is dynamic. The past may have shaped me, but it does not have to define me. Each moment of conscious presence is an act of reparenting. Each compassionate response is a corrective experience. And over time, these moments accumulate into a life that feels grounded, coherent, and whole. The truth I eventually faced was far more confronting and far more compassionate. My body was not malfunctioning. It was remembering. This is where my journey into reparenting the past truly began. Not as a trend or a technique, but as a necessity. I realized that I could not outgrow fears that were never resolved. I could not think my way out of sensations that were learned before I could think, and I could not shame myself into healing. The fear had to be met where it lived, in the nervous system. I started noticing patterns. Very ordinary moments would trigger disproportionate reactions. A delayed reply would make my stomach drop. A mild criticism would linger in my mind for days. Conflict, even small, would drain me completely. Rest felt uncomfortable. Silence felt heavy. Success felt temporary, as if it could be taken away at any moment. These reactions were not logical, but they were consistent. And consistency is always a clue. When I traced these reactions inward instead of outward, something became clear. My nervous system was still operating with rules it learned a long time ago. Rules like stay alert, don't ask for too much, don't upset anyone, don't relax for too long, don't rely on others, don't be too visible, don't be too needy, don't be too quiet either. These rules were never spoken aloud, but they were enforced through experience. As a child, I didn't need trauma in the dramatic sense for fear to settle into my body. I needed unpredictability, emotional inconsistency, moments where my needs were minimized, misunderstood, or ignored. Times when I learned that expressing certain emotions led to rejection, withdrawal, or tension. My nervous system learned these lessons quickly, because it had to. Children adapt faster than they understand, and that is something I want to say clearly. Childhood fear does not require abuse to exist. It requires unsafety. Unsafety can be subtle. It can look like emotional distance, chronic stress in the household, lack of attunement, or being forced to grow up too soon. The nervous system doesn't analyze intent, it responds to impact. As I grew older, the environment changed, but my nervous system didn't get the update. It still believed I was small. It still believed safety depended on control, performance, or invisibility. And so I lived as an adult with a child's alarm system running in the background. The turning point came when I stopped asking, "What's wrong with me?" and started asking, "What happened to me, and what did my body learn from it?" That single shift replaced self-judgment with curiosity, and curiosity is the doorway to healing. I began to understand that fear is not stored as a story, it's stored as a state. a state of tension, a state of readiness, a state of holding back. My body wasn't recalling events, it was reliving conditions, and every time I reacted automatically, I was responding to a past that felt present. One real-life example stands out clearly. I remember sitting in a meeting where nothing threatening was said, yet my heart was racing, my throat was tight, and my mind was scanning for mistakes. No one was attacking me, but my body felt exposed. Later, instead of criticizing myself for being too sensitive, I paused and asked, when have I felt this before? The answer didn't come as words. It came as a sensation, a familiar pressure I remembered from childhood moments where attention meant expectation, and expectation meant danger. This is when reparenting stopped being abstract for me. I realized no amount of confidence training or mindset work would calm that response unless my nervous system felt supported in the moment. I didn't need motivation. I needed regulation. Reparenting at its core is learning to respond to my internal experience the way a safe, attuned caregiver would respond to a child. That means noticing distress early. That means staying present instead of dismissing it. That means offering reassurance through tone, breath, and consistency, not lectures. So I began with something very simple, but very powerful. When fear arose, I stopped pushing through it. I paused. I grounded my feet. I slowed my breath. And internally I spoke to myself, not dramatically, not artificially, but calmly. I would say, I'm here. You're not in trouble. We can take this one step at a time. At first this felt strange, almost embarrassing, but my nervous system didn't care about how it looked. It responded immediately. The intensity softened, not disappeared, but softened, and that told me everything I needed to know. My body wasn't demanding perfection. It was asking for presence. I also had to confront something uncomfortable. I had learned to abandon myself in the same ways I once felt abandoned. I minimized my own needs. I dismissed my exhaustion. I ignored my fear until it exploded. Reparenting meant ending that pattern. It meant staying with myself even when it was inconvenient. Another real-life example came through relationships. I noticed that when someone pulled away slightly, I would either chase reassurance or shut down completely. Both reactions were attempts to regain safety. When I traced this response back, it led me to early experiences of emotional inconsistency. My nervous system learned that connection could disappear without warning, so it stayed alert. The solution wasn't to control others. It was to become reliable internally. When I felt the familiar panic rise, I practiced something new. I named the sensation. I reminded myself of the present. I resisted the urge to act impulsively. I stayed. Over time, my nervous system learned that distance did not equal danger. That lesson could not be taught intellectually. It had to be experienced repeatedly. This is why reparenting is slow work. The nervous system learns through repetition, not reasoning. Every time I respond to myself with patience instead of panic, I am teaching safety. Every time I choose rest instead of self-punishment, I am teaching worth. Every time I allow emotion without judgment, I am teaching acceptance. I also learned that fear often disguises itself as urgency. It says, fix this now or something bad will happen. Reparenting teaches me to question that urgency, to slow down, to check whether the threat is real or remembered. Most of the time, it is remembered. The more I practiced this, the more space I felt inside myself. Space between trigger and response. Space between sensation and story. Space to choose differently. That space is the beginning of freedom. By the end of this phase, I understood something fundamental. Healing childhood fear is not about erasing the past. It is about updating the nervous system. It is about teaching the body that the conditions have changed. That I am no longer powerless. That someone is finally paying attention. And that someone is me. As I come to the end of this reflection, I remind myself of something simple, but profound. The fear I have been carrying was never a sign that I was broken. It was proof that I adapted. It was proof that my nervous system did everything it could to keep me alive, even when safety was uncertain and reassurance was rare. And once I truly understood that, I stopped fighting myself. I started listening. Reparenting the past is not about reliving pain or staying trapped in old stories. It is about ending the loneliness that fear was born from. It is about showing up where no one else could, and doing it again and again, not perfectly but consistently. Every time I pause instead of panic, every time I speak to myself with patience instead of pressure, every time I choose presence over self-abandonment, something inside me softens, something inside me learns that the danger has passed. I no longer expect fear to disappear overnight. That was never the goal. The goal was relationship. The goal was trust. The goal was becoming someone my nervous system could finally relax around. And the more I do this, the clearer it becomes. Healing is not dramatic. It is quiet. It happens in small moments that no one else sees. When I breathe through discomfort, when I allow emotion without judgment, when I stay instead of running. The past may have shaped my first understanding of the world, but it does not get to write the final chapter of my life. I am here now. I am older, stronger, more aware. I can offer what was missing. I can become the safety I was searching for. And so can you. Childhood fear does not disappear simply because time passes. It embeds itself into the nervous system, shaping how the body reacts long before the mind has time to think. What we call overreaction in adulthood is often the nervous system repeating a lesson it learned when it was young and unprotected. From a Jungian perspective, this is not a flaw in character, but a fragmentation of the psyche that has never been reintegrated. Carl Jung understood that the psyche is not linear. The past is not behind us, it is beneath us. Childhood fear does not live as a memory alone, it lives as a pattern. It emerges as tension in the chest, tightness in the throat, collapse in the shoulders, vigilance in the eyes. The adult believes they are responding to the present, but the body is responding to the past. Reparenting the past is not about blaming caregivers or revisiting trauma endlessly. It is about restoring a function that was missing at a crucial time, the presence of a regulating, protective, attuned authority within the psyche itself. When this function was absent or inconsistent in childhood, the psyche adapts by remaining on alert. The nervous system never receives the signal that danger has passed. Jung referred to these unresolved aspects as complexes, emotionally charged clusters of experience that operate autonomously. A childhood fear complex does not ask for permission before it activates. It hijacks perception, narrows awareness, and compels behavior. Reparenting is the process of meeting these complexes consciously rather than being possessed by them. The nervous system does not respond to logic alone. You cannot think your way out of a fear that was learned before language. The child within did not need explanations. They needed safety, consistency, and emotional mirroring. When those needs were unmet, the body learned that the world is unpredictable and that vigilance is necessary for survival. In Jungian terms, the child's self becomes split off and relegated to the unconscious. But what is unconscious does not disappear, it waits. It waits for situations that resemble the original threat. A tone of voice, a facial expression, silence, rejection, authority. The adult self is suddenly flooded with fear that feels disproportionate yet entirely real. Reparenting begins with recognizing that these reactions are not weaknesses. They are intelligent adaptations that once served a purpose. The psyche protected itself the only way it could. Respecting that intelligence is essential, because what is rejected remains stuck. What is welcomed can evolve. The nervous system must be shown, repeatedly, that the adult self is now capable of protection. This is not symbolic, it is physiological. The body must experience containment. When Jung spoke of individuation, he referred to the process by which fragmented parts of the psyche are integrated into a cohesive whole. Reparenting is individuation applied to emotional development. One of the most important insights Jung offered is that healing does not come from eliminating fear, but from enlarging consciousness so fear no longer dominates. The child part does not need to be silenced. It needs to be accompanied. When fear arises, the task is not to suppress it, but to relate to it differently. This requires a shift in identity. Instead of identifying as the frightened child, one learns to identify as the observing adult who notices the child's fear. This creates psychological space. In that space, regulation becomes possible. The nervous system begins to differentiate between then and now. The body learns through experience, not affirmation. Saying, "I am safe," while the body is in panic, creates internal conflict. Instead, safety must be demonstrated through action, slowing the breath, grounding through sensation, setting boundaries, choosing responses rather than reacting automatically. Each time the adult self responds with steadiness, the nervous system records new data. Jung emphasized the importance of symbolic relationship with inner figures. The inner child is not a metaphor, it is a living psychic reality. Engaging with it through imagination, dialogue, or reflection allows the psyche to reorganize itself. This is not regression, it is repair. Childhood fear often originates not from overt trauma, but from chronic emotional misattunement. Being unseen, unheard, or emotionally alone teaches the nervous system that connection is unsafe. As adults, this manifests as avoidance, people-pleasing, hyper-independence, or fear of intimacy. These are not personality traits, they are survival strategies. Reparenting involves providing what was missing: validation without collapse, structure without rigidity, compassion without indulgence. The adult self becomes both nurturing and firm. This balance is critical. Over-nurturing keeps the child dependent, over-discipline recreates the original wound. The psyche needs reliability, not extremes. From a nervous system perspective, fear lives in patterns of activation. The sympathetic system mobilizes for threat, the parasympathetic collapses under overwhelm. A reparenting adult learns to recognize these states and respond appropriately. Mobilization requires grounding and direction. Collapse requires warmth and gentle engagement. Jung believed that symptoms are meaningful. Anxiety is not an enemy, it is a message. It points to something in the psyche that has not been integrated. When fear arises, the question is not, "How do I get rid of this?" but, "What part of me is asking for attention?" The shadow plays a role here. Many people disown their fear because they associate it with weakness. The shadow contains everything we were taught not to be. But fear that is pushed into the shadow becomes more powerful. Reparenting brings fear out of the shadow and into relationship. The nervous system is shaped through repetition. One moment of insight is not enough. The child part trusts consistency, not intensity. Each time the adult responds with patience instead of self-criticism, the bond strengthens. Trust is built gradually, the same way it should have been built in childhood. Jung warned against spiritual bypassing, the use of ideas to avoid emotional reality. Reparenting is not about transcending fear through philosophy. It is about staying present with the body as it learns something new. Wisdom must be embodied to be effective. A critical element of reparenting is boundary formation. Many childhood fears originate from boundary violations, emotional, physical, or psychological. The nervous system learned that it had no defense. The adult self must now become the boundary, saying no, limiting exposure, choosing safe relationships. All of these teach the body that it is no longer helpless. The inner authority replaces the external authority that once failed. Jung saw this as a shift from parental imago to self. The self, in Jungian psychology, is the organizing center of the psyche. When the self becomes active, the child no longer carries the burden alone. Fear often resurfaces during times of growth. As the psyche expands, old structures resist change. This is not regression, it is reorganization. The nervous system revisits earlier states to update them. Understanding this prevents discouragement. Healing is not linear, it is spiral. Reparenting also involves grief. The child must mourn what it did not receive. This grief is not indulgent, it is necessary. Jung believed that ungrieved losses bind psychic energy. When grief is allowed, energy becomes available for life. The nervous system releases its grip on vigilance when it no longer has to protect against unacknowledged pain. The adult self must tolerate this grief without collapsing or rushing to fix it. Presence is the repair. When the child's emotions are met without dismissal, the original wound begins to close. Fear that originates in childhood often masquerades as intuition in adulthood. The body confuses familiarity with truth. Reparenting teaches discernment. Not every fear is a warning, some are echoes. Learning to distinguish between them restores agency. Jung's concept of active imagination is particularly useful here. By consciously engaging with fear as a figure or sensation, the psyche externalizes it enough to relate to it. The adult can ask, what do you need? What are you protecting? What are you afraid would happen if you relaxed? These dialogues often reveal that the fear believes catastrophe is imminent. The child part is frozen in time. The adult's task is to update reality, not through argument, but through experience. Showing up consistently, choosing safety, and surviving situations that once felt threatening requires expectation. The nervous system learns safety through completion. Many childhood fears involve interrupted responses, fight, flight, or expression that was never allowed. Reparenting allows these responses to complete in safe, symbolic, or physical ways. This restores a sense of efficacy. Jung understood that the psyche seeks wholeness, not comfort. Reparenting can be uncomfortable because it challenges familiar identities. Some people are attached to their fear because it has defined them. Letting it soften feels like losing oneself. But what is lost is not the self, it is the adaptation. As the nervous system stabilizes, energy previously used for vigilance becomes available for creativity, connection, and meaning. Jung believed that when the psyche is no longer fragmented, it naturally moves toward purpose. Fear no longer dictates choices, values do. Reparenting does not erase the past, it changes the relationship to it. The child does not disappear, it grows. The nervous system does not forget, it learns. This is not self-improvement, it is self-reclamation. The work requires patience, honesty, and humility. There will be moments when the old fear returns unexpectedly. These moments are not failures, they are invitations to respond differently. Each response rewrites the internal narrative. Jung's wisdom reminds us that healing is not about becoming someone else. It is about becoming who we were before fear narrowed our possibilities. The psyche already contains the blueprint for wholeness. Reparenting is the process of allowing that blueprint to unfold through lived experience. The nervous system is not against us. It has been waiting for leadership. When the adult self steps into that role, not as a critic, but as a steady presence, the child no longer has to carry the burden of survival alone. And in that ongoing relationship between adult and child, between consciousness and body, the fear that once ruled the nervous system gradually loses its authority. Not because it was defeated, but because it was finally understood, accompanied, and transformed through relationship rather than force. If there is one thing I want to leave you with, it is this: your nervous system is not your enemy. It is waiting for leadership. It is waiting for reassurance. It is waiting for someone to say, "I've got you now." And when that message is delivered, not once but consistently, fear begins to loosen its grip. Healing does not mean forgetting where you came from. It means no longer being ruled by it. And when the body finally understands that, something remarkable happens. You stop surviving. You start living. Your nervous system isn't asking for perfection. It's asking for consistency. Fear stays loud when it's ignored, and softens when it's finally met. The body remembers what the mind learned to forget, and healing happens when we listen. You were never too sensitive. You were responding to an environment that asked too much.